A person's truth shows in the quiet cracks, not the loud displays. You won't find it in their speeches, trophies, or carefully polished kindness. Those are performances, staged for the world to see. What really reveals character is smaller, harder to hide. Watch two things: who they judge most harshly, and how they act when their image is shaken. These moments are like tiny cracks under pressure. They expose the real structure beneath the surface. Imagine you are sitting across from someone you've trusted for years. They are warm, competent, even considerate, and yet you feel a subtle misalignment, like a picture hung 2 degrees off level. You cannot point to a lie or a crime, but the air around them carries a pressure, as if something is being held together with effort. The persona, the social mask each of us learns to wear, does not need to be malicious to be misleading. It can be a set of habits so practiced that even the wearer forgets the face beneath. The question is not whether people wear masks. The question is whether the seams show when they forget they are wearing one. The first seam is revealed in judgment. Pay attention to the traits a person condemns with unusual heat. Dislike is ordinary. Intensity is diagnostic. When someone speaks about another with disproportionate contempt, when their voice hardens, when their jaw sets, when they seem compelled to denounce a fault again and again, you are watching a projection. We spit out what we cannot swallow in ourselves. We exile a capacity, an appetite, a fear, and then see it everywhere but the mirror. The angrier the judgment, the closer it sits to home. Picture Daniel, an award-winning architect who prides himself on his moral backbone. In meetings, he repeatedly rails against a colleague, Marcus, for being a charmer, slick, ingratiating, plastic. Every time Marcus earns client praise, Daniel's shoulders rise. Every time Marcus jokes with the team, Daniel's mouth thins. If you listen only to Daniel's words, the story is simple: integrity versus manipulation. If you watch the force behind those words, you'll catch a different thread. Daniel has disowned his own hunger to be liked. Somewhere he learned that cultivating likability is counterfeit, and that lesson became a vow. Now, whenever he witnesses social ease, he calls it fake to keep faith with the image of himself as purely principled. His judgment serves a private oath: I will not be that. But because the desire for connection did not vanish when he denounced it, his nervous system treats Marcus as contraband proof that the outlawed part still lives. This is how shadow mapping works. Our fiercest condemnations are often the guardians of a locked room we do not want to open. The shadow is not simply the ugly, it is the unlived, the assertiveness we call selfishness, because we were praised only for self-sacrifice, the need for applause we sneer at, because we were taught pure motives require invisibility, the sensuality we shame in others because it threatens the control we cling to. We export what we cannot inventory. When you catalog someone's pet hatreds, you sketch the outline of their disowned provinces. Projection moves in 2 directions. We not only demonize what we cannot accept, we worship what we cannot claim. Listen for another kind of intensity: the glowing reverence that places people on high pedestals for being so confident, so creative, so fearless. Often those compliments are smuggled self-portraits. The admirer glimpses a capacity within, but it is safer to adore it at a distance than to develop it. Positive projection feels sweet, but its chemistry is the same avoidance. The power is placed outside because it is frightening to locate it inside. Now, to the second seam: what happens when the mask rattles? Anyone can curate poise when the lighting, timing, and script cooperate. Character shows when the script fails. Watch how a person handles the moment their public image is pinched, when they are corrected, when they are misunderstood, when they make an error they cannot easily varnish over. Do they stonewall, lash out, minimize, or pass the blame downstream? Or do they absorb the discomfort, examine the criticism, and respond from something sturdier than pride? Consider Sarah, a marketing director, celebrated for her calm. She has built a brand around being unshakable. In a high-stakes meeting, a client challenges her strategy, not rudely, but directly. The temperature in the room changes by 2 degrees. Sarah's voice sharpens. She interrupts mid-sentence, nudges fault toward her team, and takes a quick jab at the client's previous decisions. For years, colleagues thought calm was her ground state. In fact, It was a controlled performance, a discipline maintained by keeping threat at bay. When the threat landed, the mask slipped and revealed the machinery beneath. Insecurity that cannot tolerate exposure, loyalty that ends where image protection begins, and a belief that dignity is preserved by attack rather than by accountability. Mask maintenance consumes energy. The more energy a person invests in it, the more brittle their reactions under friction. There are many disguises, a saintly persona that cannot admit anger without calling it righteous zeal, a rational persona that derides feeling as primitive, a rebel persona that must manufacture opposition to feel alive. But all share one feature. When cornered by reality, they reach for the old defense. That reflex is the signature. It tells you how they metabolize shame and threat. Some default to grandiosity. I am beyond reproach, so you must be blind. Some default to collapse. I am worthless, so I'll disappear before you can confirm it. Some default to displacement. The nearest subordinate will pay for the discomfort I refuse to feel. A rarer pattern pauses, breathes, and makes room for legitimate pain. I missed something. I don't like that, but I can bear it. Let's look again. When the mask shakes, the organism shows you whether it has integrated its contradictions or only hidden them behind choreography. Why do these two seams tell so much? Because both bypass the will. In projection, the unconscious smuggles its contents into the world so they can be seen from a safe distance. In persona, threat, the nervous system chooses the oldest survival strategy before the conscious story catches up. You can rehearse talking points and manage facial muscles. You cannot easily falsify the pattern your body turns to under pressure, or the intensity with which you attack a trait you secretly fear inhabits you. If you want a practical way to read character without cynicism, treat judgments and stress reactions as data, not verdicts. Ask not, is this person good or bad? Ask, what are they at war with inside themselves, and what do they sacrifice to win that war? When someone attacks ambition in others, is it because they have married themselves to smallness and need the world to confirm that choice? When someone sneers at vulnerability, is it because they are terrified of depending on anyone? When someone cannot bear correction, is it because their worth is stapled to being right? You are not condemning them by asking these questions. You are looking for the blueprint of their defenses so that you can understand the building you are standing in. There is a further inquiry, not for the faint, that entwines the two seams into a single test of maturity. When you notice someone projecting, invite a gentle mirror, not an accusation, a curiosity. You seem especially irritated by showiness. Have you ever felt the impulse to show off and then shut it down? The answer opens a door to the person they are becoming. A brittle soul will counterattack or litigate language to avoid the feeling. A defended but intelligent one will concede the idea in theory while keeping the heart sealed. A more integrated one will feel the sting, breathe, and let a truth through. I hate it in others because I'm ashamed of it in me, and I don't quite know what to do with that. The difference is not about self-flagellation. It is about whether the person has enough internal space to hold paradox without evacuating. That capacity, staying with discomfort long enough to harvest information from it, is the beginning of wisdom rather than a performance of it. Use these lenses and your world will change. But take care. The ability to see patterns can curdle into superiority. It is tempting to become a hunter of shadows in other people to avoid watching your own. Psychological literacy can become a weapon disguised as clarity. That road ends in loneliness and cruelty because it confuses understanding with control. The sober use of these insights is humbler. To recognize that everyone's mask forms around pain, that most projections defend a frightened tenderness, and that you too wear the armor you critique. If you are seeing sharply and becoming crueler, you are not seeing. You are protecting your own wound with analysis. If you want to apply these ideas without turning them into a game of one-upmanship, begin at home. Keep a quiet record. What irritation keeps visiting me? Which kind of person makes me theatrically moral? Where does my voice harden? Who brings out the zealot, the judge, the cynic? Every entry is a breadcrumb back to a room you have locked. Do not storm it, sit by the door. Ask what you are protecting: competence, purity, autonomy, admiration. Somewhere, a younger version of you made a bargain. To be safe, I will be this, and not that. That vow built your persona and stalked your shadow. Honor the vow's origin. It kept you alive in a particular climate. But do not confuse survival style with destiny. When you can thank the old bargain and loosen its terms, you stop needing the world to echo your self-conception, and you stop punishing people who threaten it. Watch your reactions under minor stress the way a scientist watches the smallest shifts in a gauge. You do not need a catastrophe to learn your pattern. You need a dying phone battery, a delayed reply, a joke that lands flat, a door that does not open the first time you push it. Notice the micro choices. Do you blame, sulk, perform, or repair? Do you reach for gossip to discharge the sting? Do you become extra helpful to buy back approval? Do you withdraw before anyone can see the wobble? The real curriculum is in those seconds. If you can slow them, you can begin to choose. If you can choose, you can align your outer presentation and inner life until the mask and the face resemble one another, enough that neither has to work so hard. None of this will make you invincible or perfect. It will make you honest. Honesty is not confession for its own sake. It is the refusal to outsource your contradictions to other people. When you stop exporting your unlived parts as enemies and stop exporting your unloved parts as idols, you recover energy that used to be spent on theater. Energy returns as presence. Presence is the one trait that does not need to advertise itself.